Today's video feature is a comprehensive discussion about automobile accident cases, what we look for, what we look out for. It's designed for someone who has been in an accident or someone they care about has been injured, and they're wanting to know what they're facing and whether or not they need a lawyer. And we'll go into all of those details, and so by the end of this video you're going to have a much clearer idea about the structural process of handling an automobile accident case. Now, it all begins with a telephone call or an email to a law firm. If you call or email our firm, we're going to call you back very promptly. You'll most likely hear from me directly. Now, a lot of folks want to come in and sit down with us. And to be honest with you, even before COVID, we do some initial screening over the phone so we make sure that we can help you and that we're a good fit. So what sort of questions do I need to have you answer first? Well, first, we talk about the crash dynamics, exactly how the accident occurred, because that's very, very important. Now, most folks want to start out with their injuries. They're not able to work and so forth. I understand that is the most immediate concern in your life, and that is part of the damages portion. And I'll certainly respectfully and politely listen to that, but my first concern is liability. And we've done another video on liability versus damages that goes into this in even more detail. But I want to know about the crash dynamics because that's very important. If you're struck from the side or from the rear, then most likely this is a case where liability will be clear in your favor. However, if it involves any type of front end damage, then there may be a debate about who caused the accident and who is more at fault than the other. Now, in South Carolina, you can be up to 50% at fault and still recover. Of course, any recovery would be reduced by whatever percentage a judge or jury determines you are at fault. In North Carolina, by comparison, if you are at fault at all, then you get nothing under North Carolina state law. If you're struck from the rear, most likely you would have minimal fault, if any at all. If you're struck from the side, then we're going to get into a discussion about who controlled the lane, who had the right of way, and so forth. Now, once we get past the crash dynamics, then we talk about who else was in the vehicle with you, what sort of injuries each person sustained. We want to know things like, did airbags deploy? That will give us a good idea of how serious a crash this is, how much property damage, and so forth. Is the car drivable and whatnot? The next thing we'll want to talk about is, did you request medical treatment at the street? Now, a lot of times the police officer or state trooper investigating a crash will ask anyone if they're okay, if they would like an ambulance. And a lot of folks, unless they're truly seriously injured where it's not a question at all, they don't want to leave the car, they don't want to leave their valuables or passengers in the vehicle, so they'll say things like, I'm okay, I'm going to be fine, I don't want an ambulance. Now, the insurance companies will try to use that against you, and that's why after the end of the police investigation, and you've made sure everything in your vehicle is going to be safe, then absolutely I encourage you to go get checked out either at the emergency room or maybe in urgent care, certainly later that day or the following day. If you have too much of a gap, 2 to 3 days between the accident and when you first seek medical treatment, you better have a pretty good reason, because juries are very cynical of that given all the bad actors that have come before you. Plus, I think it's a good idea to get checked out the sooner the better, just to make sure you are not seriously injured and you are going to be okay. Now, after that, after the initial medical treatment, then you're going to need follow-up care. I'm a big fan of going to your family doctor. Your family doctor can prescribe medications, can maybe prescribe physical therapy or chiropractic care, and you can get follow-up care until you're back to where you were before, hopefully without any permanent injury. Also, if you're working, you're going to need some out-of-work excuses. Your family doctor can certainly provide that. So by the time you're released from medical care, we have a really good idea of what your true damages are. We'll know what your medical bills are when we get their bills from each provider. We'll get them from the emergency room or urgent care. We'll get them from your family doctor, physical therapy, or chiropractor. Then we'll also get the out-of-work slips. We'll get the detailed wages that you've lost because of this accident. We'll gather that up. We'll put it together in a package and we'll email it to an adjuster who will take a look at it. They will consider our settlement package. I usually don't put a demand in there because, again, I want their first number, and whatever number I have is going to be extremely high because we're in the negotiation process. Now, once the adjuster has the settlement package and settlement authority, then we start the negotiations. Now, in fairness, the adjuster really doesn't have a lot of independent negotiation ability. They are given a number through a computer program. Now, they are incentivized to negotiate below that number so that they don't give out their full authority. But when I'm negotiating, I'm saying, if you'll just give me your final figure, I will take that to the client. And I will not come back and even ask you to round it up. And I will take you at your word that the number you give us is, in fact, the final number. Now, I don't fully trust that, but I do come back on occasion and say, well, that's simply not enough, and we're going to file a lawsuit. And then magically, I either get a different number or it is assigned to a litigation adjuster who may have some additional authority. Now, the goal here is to get every dime we can. We certainly do not want to leave any money on the table. We work very hard to make sure that we do not. And then once we have a number that you agree to, then we turn to the medical liens. Medical liens are anything that your health insurance company pays for. If there's a third-party recovery, such as an automobile accident case, then they have an automatic lien by contract and usually by statute that we have to negotiate. So they don't get their full lien back, but we negotiate that down so that we earn our fee on the way up by negotiating for the highest amount possible, and then we earn our fee on the way down by negotiating the liens to the lowest amount possible. That way you get the most recovery in your pocket, which is eminently fair, as you are the one who was injured, who suffered through and had to heal. Now, that is the nuts and bolts of an automobile accident case. Now, do you need a lawyer? Not in every case, and I know a lot of lawyers will be upset with me, but let's be honest, if it's a relatively minor soft tissue case, it has an inherently stable value that is not going to be adjusted because you hire a lawyer. Now, if it's a serious injury case, absolutely, you need a lawyer with significant, if not substantial, experience, because you're dealing with much bigger numbers and much more consequential injury. If you have any questions about this video, you're welcome to call me. My name is Robert Reeves. My mobile number 704-351-7979, or you can email me to go over your case, robert@rjrlaw.com. Hope this has been helpful.